Well, winter is in firm grip of the UK and Ireland once again, and it looks as if we have got the snowiest and coldest conditions of the season underway. And the next few days, we're going to monitor the situation very carefully as not only the snow starts to lay down across, particularly the north, possibly the far south as well, and points in between here and there, but also the temperatures by night time. Even in the heart of England, we could see temperatures close to minus 12 or 13 as we progress through the course of this week. So this is the notable cold spell that was well advertised here on markhoganweather.com on YouTube and playing out very nicely with regards to the overall forecast. So we'll look at the details in just a second. MJO, something I've been harping on about for quite some time, is rotating through phases 4 and 5, and we are going to see the response to that the upcoming weekend here and beyond. We could start to see deep areas of low pressure moving back into play once again with gale force winds, heavy rainfall, and on top of that, we could see some significant snow melt as well. So let's get right into it here. This is the current pressure chart. Well, let's actually look at the 850 temperature profile first. This is the anomalies of the GFS. And I did make a comment yesterday to somebody that I intended to look at the North American cold outbreak. Unfortunately, I've not got the time to do that today, but I am going to try and do that either tonight, later tonight, or tomorrow. So stay tuned for that if you're interested in the Canadian and the United States cold outbreak. We are seeing record-breaking cold, significant snowfall, and all sorts of major winter weather spreading from the western side of the country all the way to the east coast, where it has been reasonably mild. The cold is now moving into eastern Canada and the United States as well. And I'll do a specific video looking at that in the next couple of days here. We're also going to look at the stratosphere and the implications of the pattern that we're currently in, how that's influenced in the lower stratosphere. Be sure to check out yesterday's global weather report because it looked specifically at the big strong Greenland block, how the polar vortex within the troposphere and the lower stratosphere is coupled, and hence why we're seeing bitterly cold conditions over the western side of Europe and North America at the moment. It's a textbook negative Arctic oscillation, North Atlantic oscillation pattern, but we are, as already highlighted with the MJO 4 and 5, we are going to see the return of the westerlies towards Friday and the weekend here. But incidentally, for cold weather lovers like myself and many of you who watch this channel, notice here how the projection is that it remains in an active phase, so away from the inner circle, which is the null phase, which is an inactive phase, and less response to the mid and high latitudes of the northern hemisphere. We stay in a fairly strong amplified phase 4 into 5, and then it's rotating back towards phases 6 and 7. This, combined with the major warming of the stratosphere at the moment and the influence we're seeing troposphere into the lower stratosphere, we are likely to go right back to the negative Arctic oscillation, North Atlantic oscillation pattern as we step into February. So we're going to see the pullback to milder, but then we're going to see a return to colder, I think, as we move into February. And whatever we see through the rest of this work week, which could become quite significant, we could see even worse in February based on all the different parameters here. So let's have a look at the finer details. This is the surface pressure chart here of Meteoseel. A little bit hard to see, do apologize for that, but things are playing out very nicely indeed. Now, we've seen the area of high pressure that was dominating for about a week or so over the UK, settling things down, drier, more settled, more comfortable pattern overall compared to what we've seen in recent weeks. Now that area of high pressure is scooting off up towards Greenland. We've got that very deep trough here. That's a very deep low, by the way, over the Baltic states at the moment here, producing all sorts of nasty conditions. But it's also with the high over the northwest, the deep area of low pressure over the Baltic region. We're seeing that discharge of bitterly cold Arctic air driving south between Iceland and Norway here. That is continuing to drive further and further south as we progress through the course of today and into tomorrow. Now, there's a little feature in the upper air pattern that is representative of a disturbance that is going to run that north flow into the UK during the course of tomorrow, and we are going to enhance not only the snow showers across northern UK, but also in a more organised fashion through into the central belt and southern Scotland as well. So we could see a significant snowfall during the course of tomorrow in through the Glasgow to Edinburgh corridor here. So we'll need to monitor that quite carefully over the next few days. We'll look at the details in just a second. But you can see here, as I've said, bitterly colder back in play once again over Scandinavia. So we eased the pattern off. It warmed up quite significantly, but we're back in the cold once again. And we're back in the cold across the majority of the continent, with the exceptions of southern Europe and Iberia. Mild conditions, as you can see, far southern France and across Spain and Portugal as well. Very cold conditions now across the majority of the British Isles here, and we can see with the current temperatures. Now, I actually think that the tops of the Cairngorms and the Highlands in general tend to be a pretty good indicator as to what type of air mass you've got. And when you've got those temperatures at around the 4,500 foot level, so that's kind of Cairngorm Summit, Ben Macdui, Ben Nevis level, that's the closest any land areas in the UK get to the 5,000 foot level, or the 850 millibar level. Now, the 850 millibar level is something that is discussed very often, because that is a very good indicator as to what type of air mass you're dealing with, whether it be in the summertime or whether it be in the wintertime. And when you've got the temperatures at the top of Cairngorm around -10, -12, that represents a very cold air mass indeed. And you can see here that the current temperatures are at -10 with a wind chill close to -20 over, Annaghmore, Ben Macdui, Ben Nevis, Cairngorm. That 4,000 plus foot level is the closest representation to the air mass that you're dealing with generally. And you can see here that the very cold numbers here, sub-freezing temperatures all the way down to the south coast here, Plymouth, Southampton, across to Portsmouth as well. We're talking about a pretty cold night indeed. Now you can see here wind chill values with even the slightest of breezes is quite significant here, which also is a good indicator of the type of air mass, and a very dry air. I noticed here that my dew point here at the house was at -6.5 this afternoon, even though the air temperature was actually slightly above the freezing mark. The really low dew points represent pure Arctic air, a very dry air, easy to kind of get chapped lips when you're in exposure of that breeze, or even just the air in general. And you can actually really notice the difference when you've got Arctic air in place. But any kind of clear skies and light winds, especially if you've got a little bit of snow cover now, temperatures drop like a stone. -10 is going to be close to a given pretty much all the way through till the end of this work week, and then we'll see the milder conditions moving in. But these are the current wind chills, and you can see very, very low wind chills all the way down into the north of France here, so southern portions of England, a little bit lighter winds overall. But you notice here from about the Pennines eastwards, we've got some fairly significant wind chills at this early hour of the evening here, and below -20 over the tops of the mountains here. So these are the current temperatures, like I say, and this is a reasonably cold air mass, to say the least. This is the coldest air mass that we've seen so far this year. So let's have a look and see what the UKV model is indicating with regards to snowfall potential first. So let's have a look at the precipitation in the cloud here, and you can see with that northerly airflow, we are continuing to see those snow showers rattling in on that cold, stinging northerly wind here. So continue to see that through the course of this evening. Some places are getting it, some places are seeing significant snowfall. Deeside, parts of Aberdeenshire, even Murray, up into Sutherland and Caithness, we're seeing some fairly significant amounts of snow starting to pile up. Here at the house, just about 14 miles north of Inverness, not a great deal, just a fine skift, if you will. Now you can see here that as we continue to play through into the early portions of tomorrow morning, there's that little feature riding a northwesterly flow, and we're actually turning the wind rather than being direct north. It's going to be more of a kind of west to northwesterly flow, but with very cold air in place, As soon as this moisture moves inland, it turns readily to snow, right down to sea level as well, by the way. So the snow accumulations are going to mount up. It looks as if it could be quite a tricky commute during the course of tomorrow morning, anywhere from the southwest Highlands down through the Central Belt into the southern portions of Scotland. Also, parts of Northern Ireland, anywhere from Tyrone all the way to Antrim, could see a covering of snow with this feature here, so we need to pay attention to that. And then, as we progress through the course of the late morning into the early afternoon, we're going to see that system moving across the southern half of Scotland here. Northern England, even down the low levels, we could see an accumulation here. Nothing significant, I don't think, but we will see accumulation nonetheless. And then we'll see more snow showers piling in to the northern half of the UK, and that's sinking its way southwards later in the day tomorrow here. So I think by the end of tomorrow into Wednesday morning, while we've got a decent amount of snow covered ground, we also could be talking about temperatures below -15 to start Wednesday, and that would be the coldest hour of the season quite comfortably. Now, do we have anything with regards to snow across the far south of the UK? Now, the models are coming and going with this, and it's still possible. So, if we take our eyes away from the northern half of the UK for now, you can see here that the UKV model does not see that feature here. Let's play it back so that we're not missing anything. You can see here the moisture skirting the far south of England here, but the UKV model, or the Met Office model, keeps that moisture to the south, means that we remain in the cold air across the bulk of England and Wales here. So we're not pulling anything mild up from the south. So daytime temperatures, even down across parts of Berkshire, Oxfordshire, all the way down to Hampshire and Dorset, we're likely away from the coast to have a hard time getting above the zero mark all day long. And then with clear skies and light winds at night, it will turn bitterly cold here. And this is your proper winter outbreak of cold. And you can see by the time we reach 21Z on Friday, there's the beginning of the milder surge of the Atlantic here. So let's look at the snow depth of the UKV, and you can see exactly how the snow really starts to mount up across, particularly the north. A lot of gaps, especially low-level gaps, areas where it's protected by surrounding hills, should start to see snow lay down more and more. And the reason why is we're seeing that feature moving in from the northwest direction here, and we should see almost the entire northern half of the UK under snow cover. This is by the early hours of Wednesday morning. Now, you factor in clear skies and light winds, temperatures are going to plummet here. And I would not be surprised before the end of this week that we knock on the door of -20. Now, the coldest temperature that we've seen back in the February of 2021 outbreak, that followed a major southern stratospheric warming, by the way, we've seen the temperature at Braemarm reach -23 Celsius. I don't know if we're going to get as cold as that, but certainly based on the air mass that we're talking about, with the snow cover that we're going to start to see lay down, you notice here that as we continue to progress through the period here, that we are starting to see Northern Ireland, parts of the Western Republic of Ireland, the hills to the west of Dublin, and also the North York Moors, the North Pennines, Cumbria, even parts of Exmoor and Dartmoor, parts of Norfolk and Suffolk. We're starting to see the snow in some pockets. But unfortunately for folks in the bulk of England and Wales, this is not a snowy week for you, I'm afraid. It's going to be, once again, the northern half of the British Isles that sees the coldest temperatures, but also the most snow. And unfortunately, that is just par of the course living in the UK. There's no way of getting around that, I'm afraid. But you can see temperatures even into the early hours of Tuesday morning, we are likely to see with any clear sky at all, and it's going to come and go, I think, with these snow showers. But any lengthy spells of clear sky, we're going to see the temperatures really drop close to -10 or below. So you can see as we continue to skip through here, I think the second half of this work week becomes the notable player here. So here's some temperatures now dropping into the -teens below zero here, and then that progresses into the further south here. But even the central belt, -12, -13 Celsius is very possible. and I think the coldest comes at the second half of the week. Run out of time. Like, share, and subscribe.